So, on today's episode, we're going to be discussing the left hand path and the right hand path. I had a lot of people messaging me after yesterday's episode, kind of asking, what is it? What do those terms mean? How do I know if I'm one or the other? So, don't worry, on today's episode, we're going to be discussing all of those things so that you yourself can have a better understanding of it and perhaps figure out which one you are. I will start by saying, a lot of people look at it in a very black and white fashion. They will say that the right hand path is the light and things that are good and karmic, whereas the left hand path are things that are darker and perhaps more taboo. I don't tend to think that anything in life is so black and white. I also don't tend to believe that you have to be one or the other. I believe that ultimately, for both people practicing either one, that we're looking for the same goal, ultimately. I do personally consider myself left-hand path, and you can shorten it when you're writing to LHP or RHP in your text. It's a very interesting thing because it's one of the most basic foundations of magic. The person who really brought it to the West and kind of coined it in some ways was actually Madame Blavatsky. And one of the things I'm really enjoying about this show and talking about this topic is it's not actually a completely male-dominated field. In the occult and the esoteric, there are just as many famous women as there are men. And I will be doing an episode completely and totally devoted to Madame Blavatsky and her history later on because she's a fascinating character. But anyway, moving back to the left-hand path and the right-hand path. We'll start with the right-hand path because it's the more popular one, I would say, out of the two. It's a more classically followed path. As I said, they have a very strong set of morals. They believe in things like karma, and I'm sure most of you watching this already have a good idea of what karma is and know the concept of that. But if you do something in your life, it can reflect in the next life if you believe in reincarnation, or that just even in this life, if you do something, it will come back on you. And that leads into another concept that followers of the right-hand path strongly believe in is something called the threefold law. And this is very much a Wiccan belief that if you are doing anything, be it positive or negative, and you're putting energy out there, it will come back to you 3 times. And so that's something to think about. They believe if you're doing something with negative repercussion, there will be repercussions. They do believe in the concept of sort of judgment and the good and the law of nature and such. Whereas the left-hand path kind of free themselves of that concept. They don't so much believe in the threefold law. The left-hand path is not so much an evil path. It is more a path of the self and self-discovery, I believe personally. It does include a lot more things like sex magic you're going to find over here on the left-hand path. You won't see nearly as much of it. You'll see fertility rites and such with Beltane in right-hand practice, but on the left hand we definitely have a lot more sexier, kind of darker stuff, which I think is partially why I was very much drawn to it. I personally always had a sense and knew that I was left-hand path. There was never really a question about it for me, which is kind of funny because I think when a lot of times people look at me, they see a very light creature and they imagine that I must be a right-hand path kind of person. I think for you personally, if you want to find out which one you are, you'll either have a good sense already, and I will say you don't have to be one or the other. You can have concepts of both. There are certainly morals and ethics that I take from the right-hand path while practicing things that are very left-hand path. So it's as I said, it's not black and white. Don't feel like you must be put in a box of one or the other. Ultimately for you and your practices, it won't matter as much in the long run, but it is important if you're getting into this to understand both and to kind of know what they are. So yes, for you, let's say you're trying to figure out, am I left-hand path or right-hand path? My advice to you would be to go to a metaphysical store or a magic shop, to walk around the store and just kind of see what you are drawn to personally. Although I will say it is important to find a store that does contain both, because a lot of times I've found, at least in Colorado, especially in Colorado Springs, they have a lot of metaphysical stores. You'll go in and they will be purely one or the other. So I remember I went into a store in Old Colorado City and I was looking for the Book of the Law, which is an Aleister Crowley text. And the shop was absolutely disgusted by it. They had nothing dealing with the left-hand path whatsoever. Everything Crowley was banned from the store. So some people feel very strongly about it. So find an open-minded metaphysical store that contains both, and all good shops actually, I should believe, have an equal balance. And see what you were personally drawn to. Look at the books, find what you're picking up, what you're looking at. Buy both texts from both things and see what you enjoy. And the more that you like, you will kind of get into a mode where you get more comfortable with that and start working more on that side of it. I wouldn't pressure it, I wouldn't rush it, just take your time personally to figure it out. So I hope this video has helped you today a little bit to understand the differences between the left and the right. I will also say I think it's good to cover as well, things like people say, well, if you're left-hand path, you must be a Satanist, or because a lot of the satanic rites fall into the left-hand path. I am personally not a Satanist. I actually do not care for the topic at all, so there you go. But I still consider myself left-hand path because I do think there are good principles to that on that side. So figure it out for yourself, go out, tell me what you find, write below in the comments, which one do you think that you are, what are you more drawn to, the lights or the fairies or the darker things in nature? So let me know, I'm really interested to hear back from you guys, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care, bye!